Hi there, my name is Tom Hitchcock and welcome to my YouTube channel. My idea is so simple, it's really a platform for people to share their story with whoever wants to listen, basically. We have a range of stories. We have people that are relatively unassuming but have miraculous stories for us all to learn and listen to those people in society that we cannot get in front of. They have a high station and we are able to speak with them and get that story shared with us all. So please subscribe below so you don't miss out on any of these interviews that we do, and enjoy. Jamie, Tom, how are you?
Yeah, very good, Tom. Good to meet you again.
Yes, very nice to meet you again. Now, for those that don't know you, I know a little bit about you. Okay. If I was going to sum up your backstory, I'd say life happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
It sounds quite ambiguous, but it's true. You know, these things happen, and curveballs cross our path, and it's how we deal with them is what we can be judged by, I guess. But that was my bit of a spoiler alert. Do you want to share with our listeners a little bit about yourself and where you come from and who is Jamie?
Absolutely. Well, interesting. I'm an Adelaide boy, so for any of your listeners across Australia, that's where I'm from. Had a pretty interesting life outside of work. Everything from played semi-professional soccer, and had some adversity even as a child. I was in a major car accident when I was young, and broke my neck. And so, your interesting title is actually interesting because I had all that adversity before I got into the business world, and I'm okay now. So, nothing wrong with that. But in the business sense, I was a guy that actually started off as a fitter and turner. I was a mechanical engineering tradesperson working as a maintenance guy at a company called Electrolux. Had a really interesting entry into the HR space because I won some awards as a tradesperson, and they said, "Hey, we think you'd be good training people." So I moved into a training role, training apprentices, and from that, I did that for about 12 months, and then they said, "Hey, we think you'd be a great HR person. We want to send you off to uni." So my HR career started an interesting way. From there, I just had opportunity after opportunity, got involved in some very unique industrial relations matters. One being the Electrolux decision, which was something that founded the work choices legislation in the early 2000s. So that was a very pivotal IR matter. That was in one of my enterprise agreements earlier in my career. I got headhunted and then got into the automotive industry. So moved on to a couple of companies and got headhunted twice before I ended up working for a company called Holden, which most people know.
Yeah, definitely had some more household names there.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about Holden is I joined well before they closed. I joined, in 2011 when the business was not performing, and still had good market share and everything else. But from a manufacturing performance point of view, we were in the bottom quartile of General Motors plants around the world. And it was very clear when I started because the way some of our leaders were leading was terrible. I had some very conflicting experiences in the early part of my time there. But to the credit of our head of manufacturing, he said, "Jamie, we need to change. What do we do?" And we then went on a journey of HR and people for the next 3 or 4 years. And we ended up completely changing the culture of Holden. And as part of that, our business performance completely turned. So we went from bottom quartile to top 10 car plants in the world.
Okay.
So that's a lot of people don't know that. They just know Holden was there and Holden closed.
Yeah.
So when we announced closure, we were a performing plant. We were actually a very high performing plant globally as an automotive manufacturer. So we didn't close because of performance. We closed because of economic factors, and I had addressed that quickly because everyone thinks that the unions had something to do with our closure. And look, I could argue and I could say yes, it was wages, and yes, it was this. It wasn't. It wasn't the unions. It was purely economic. High Australian dollar, free trade agreements, co-investment with the Australian government. Lots of factors. The big one being logistics. Where Australia's in the corner of the world.
Mm.
Anyone that's had flown on a plane knows that. And just getting past to Australia to build cars cost about $3,000 per car.
Mm-hmm.
So, you add that to your price, it makes a difference. So economically, it didn't make sense to build cars in Australia. Ford, Toyota, and General Motors all announced closure. So I then had the luxury or benefit or challenge, is the right word, to help run the closure project. So I run the closure project for the next 4 years for General Motors.
What I find interesting about that bit, and I want to hear what happens next as well.
Yeah.
And obviously, a lot of our listeners are overseas as well. So most people in Australia will be very, very familiar with the Holden story as per the media tells us, and the media told us what you've just now debunked. Okay, so the media and it went in and it wasn't performing. We knew it wasn't performing. Okay, and that's where your economic reasons were. But then the media didn't let go of that. Okay, so that's stuck, and that's all people have known. That's all they remembered.
Yeah.
So the nuts and bolts of it, no pun intended, a bit later, which will reflect a far more accurate and picture the world doesn't know about.
Absolutely. And look, there are even other factors that I think the influence of countries like China and their ability to manufacture, and people look at China and go, they're cheap products. They're actually, especially if you go to the big facilities, they're not. I visited 2 of our Chinese facilities in General Motors, and they're world class. They actually put a lot of countries and a lot of places to shame. So it makes it really tough to build cars and things in countries like Australia when you've got that as well. So lots of factors.
Out of curiosity, then, so whilst I've got you on that point, and it's just purely curiosity, which country does car making the best then, based on your inside information?
Look, that answer has changed a lot in the last 15, 20 years. If you go back through time, I mean, Australia's always made good cars, and there's a perception that maybe we didn't. We've always made good cars. But obviously, countries like Germany and parts of Europe have always had that reputation and still do, which is great. China, a lot of people look at their brands. A lot of them are actually decent quality. Interesting, though, I would say, and I wouldn't say they're the best, but just something to keep an eye on. When you look at quality data over the last 10 years, couple of the manufacturers that would surprise you is Kia and Hyundai, right? The quality of those vehicles in the last 10 to 15 years has significantly increased. And so the value of car that you're getting for the money is incredible. So it's I think you could always stick with your traditional car making countries like your Germanys and so forth, but don't rule out places like Korea now.
That's interesting. Thanks for that. I appreciate that, because obviously how people perceive a brand and the corresponding manufacturing country, like for example, Land Rover, Range Rover it's Range Rover and Jaguar are made in India now, for example.
Yep.
Okay, so you've got the brand which has its own association, then you've got the country of origin, the manufacturer is another association, and conjoining those, then people have their perceptions, and
Yep.
China, a really good example of that.
Absolutely. I look at, again, it surprised me when I saw how efficient and how highly advanced they were. And because they the size of their country, I mean, they had highly skilled people building cars that you wouldn't have in other countries like Australia and Western and countries that are westernized.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. Anyway, so I interrupted your story. So
Yeah.
Yeah, keep going. So we're at Holden. You've done a cracking job. You've corrected a few wrongs from the media there. But as we all know, Holden in Australia did finish up.
Yes. So interesting, and just to touch on this point, because we put so much focus on people prior to announcing closure, and we've now got a people-focused leadership, we decided to do something a little different. Rather than hold on to the information that we're going to close and then give people 3 months, 6 months notice, we actually said, no, we have to do the right thing by people. And we basically said, we're going to give people all the notice that we have, which is 4 years. So we then gave people the right notice, communicated, we're transparent, completely told them about how we're going to support them. We built a world-class transition program, which ran over 4 years. And that's important because if you're doing a transition, or let's call it an outplacement program, which is what most people would call it, you get a few stickers on your resume and you get a couple of stamps and you're off and you're out. We did everything we could to help our people in 4 years because we knew there weren't going to be the manufacturing jobs for them to go to. 100,000 people were impacted by a closure because it wasn't just General Motors, it was the whole industry closed.
Yep.
So we couldn't just do the same thing. So we ran a 4-year program because we wanted to completely retrain people into new industries and new careers. So world-class program, super successful. Over that 4 years of closure, and remember, everyone knows the closing, every metric in our business continued to improve. So we went from being a top 10 car plant to the number 1 car plant in the world for quality in our last 9 months of building cars. So there's 100 things we did to do that as part of culture, but we had a mantra, our last car will be the best car, and our people bought that and believed in it and trusted in that. And to their credit, that's exactly what happened. Our last car was our best car. Quality just continued to improve. So really proud of that. Super successful. Almost 90% of our workforce transitioned within the first 12 months. Probably metrics you don't see in that major transition stage at all anywhere in the world. I think the best example we saw was BHP when they closed the Newcastle plant in the early 2000s. And I think they got close to 60%. So great metrics. From that, I had to work out what career I was going to do next. So I ended up going, well, I'm going to start a consultancy firm. So I started a business with my last name being Getgood. How could I not? I started a business called Getgood Consulting. Ran that for a number of years, built up a really good client network. Had a number of consultants working for me, and that was going really, really well. And then COVID hit. And the COVID world.
Next, I do it. I suffered that too. It's horrible.
Yeah, and just naturally, if you were in healthcare recruiting, your business thrived through COVID. But when you're doing HR consulting, the HR world was busy, but they couldn't put the money towards consulting. So a number of my clients, naturally put me on hold. They didn't want to stop me, but put me on hold. A number of my opportunities for my consultants just dried up. And, I still have great relationships with all these guys. They sort of still call me for work, but it just was a period of time that was tough for HR consulting. So at that point, And I had built a reputation because of the Holden closure. I ended up winning Australian Leader of the Year. That when we closed Holden, I got all these accolades, so it allowed me to go and get on the speaking circuit. So I managed to speak in lots of different countries about some of my experiences, and that was great because that opened doors when my consultancy business wasn't doing so well, and I managed to get an opportunity with a company called Staffing Venture Capital and Team Recruit, and that was the business that I've been working for the last few years, which it works within the staffing world, predominantly in the US, but lots of countries. And so I've worked with M&A, I've worked with staffing and recruiting, and there's also an offshore marketing business that we've been running. So lots of cool experiences in that space, which is a mixture of HR, and I've got involved in some international expansion and a whole heap of new skill sets in M&A that has really put me in a really healthy place.
What I like about M&A is it really exposes you to a very privileged position of really looking at the nuts and bolts of a business, which is exactly what you've done a good job of in the past, and being able to be part of a very significant milestone in their journey, if you like. And it seems like it's a bit of a logical. It is a logical progression from where you started off as a mechanic and worked your way through. It seems a little bit stumbly. Take this the right way.
Yeah, for sure.
It has what I would call where if you stumble, turn it into a dance feel about it. You know. So this is next, and what it seems to have broken down as well. There was an element where you've been led into what we think you should do this, we think you should do that. You've done a good job. Let's move you in here into then your minus external factors. You're dictating it a bit more yourself. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I look back at my career and every hiccup, every experience, every bad journalist that I was involved in, because I did a lot of the face-to-face media for Holden as well. But it's led to my career in that beautiful dance. I love that analogy. So I've been tripping up on my own feet at times and others. But if I look through what that's done for my career and for everyone I've worked for, it's been a beautiful harmony, because I've been able to take those trips and stumbles and build something beautiful in every company I've worked in because of that. So I love the dance analogy.
Yeah, it's all yours. Take it right. Keep okay, so all right. So for me, there's a whole load of things there we can unpack, and as I think you said to me earlier, there's 100 questions we can ask from one component of it. Okay, but obviously we're always a little bit mindful of time on here and people's attention spans and that as well. If we were to get you to reflect now and really summarize out of all those experiences, highs and lows, media or even low the radar, okay, if you was to summarize your big lesson from it, this is the one lesson I've taken from it. Oh, what would that be?
It's really easy. Put people first. So at the end of the day, the reason the Holden culture changed from a bottom quartile business to what was the number one car plant in the world at that point in time was people. We completely re-looked at how we led our people. There's some people believe you've got to be tough. You've got to, drive people to the bone. You've got to have strict KPIs and goals and objectives. And don't get me wrong, I agree with components of some of that. But at the end of the day, people want to people want to perform. People want to be successful. People want to be recognized. People want their people around them to go, wow, you're a good employee. Even your bad ones. And if you have that perspective and go, okay, if people want to perform but they're not, why aren't they? If you really dig deeper, and we were heavy on problem solving tools in General Motors, and using 5 whys and different root cause analysis tools, the core of it is we haven't always given people the opportunities to be the best they can be, or we haven't given them the tools, or we haven't led them well. So we ran a program at GM where we enforced our leaders to talk to them every single day.
Love it.
And I literally I made leaders put 30 minutes in their calendar and just to block it out and talk to your people every day. We were super transparent and honest in every communication that we had. We recognized everything that they did. We built programs around communication, because our communication wasn't good at the start. We did have KPIs and goals and objectives, but we didn't train our people why we did that. So we taught them why. We taught them about, if you're putting a headlight on a car, doing it a certain way and why you do it that way. And guess what? You could save people's lives. So just helping people understand the why means they put quality into that. But also helping people dream. Understand your people. What do they love and don't love about their job, and what are their career steps, and what do they want to do when they left school, right? I just get to know them, and once you understand all of those elements of a people and what makes them tick, then you can structure parts of their current role to make them thrive, right? And then that builds psychological safety, and it builds hope and opportunity. And guess what? All of a sudden, people are bought into your business and want to perform because they feel like it's their business, not just your business that they work for.
I like all that, and I think it's when you quite literally you're talking about assembly line here. So, but we use this as terminology for corporates and processes anyway. But combining all of that assembly line, that's all well and good. Okay, you're aiming for Six Sigma, you're aiming for this, that, and the other high level components. But the pros and cons, the cons are that you lose the individualization. Okay, the empowerment, that voice, that what makes that one person unique as part of that assembly line. And I think by the time you go bottom up with that and allow people to be heard, I could see how that counterbalances the con there and how that would work in that situation. And communication is key. You're absolutely right. Everything starts in a conversation. You don't know what's going to come out if you don't ask the questions, if you don't initiate it and proactively booking that time. Let's have that and see what happens. And sometimes that's all people need is have their voice be heard.
100%. What's interesting is we used to have a daily production meeting. In the past, it was just done by the leaders, and we ended up having every small team of 5 or 6 people looking at their own overtime, their own absenteeism, their own quality, their own bits as a small team of 5 production guys. And then they were empowered to fix their own issues. So, when they had an absenteeism issue, they addressed it themselves. When they have a quality issue, they address themselves, and they had their own power to do that. We supported and coached and guided and all that. But what was interesting is then you could see a quality metric in a particular day at 9 a.m. and you could see it was down. And they'd look at their own quality at that point in time going, hey guys, we're not there. Within an hour, it's picked back up because they had bought into the power of what they were doing.
I like that. Have you heard of something called black box thinking?
Yes.
Yes. They have you read the book?
I haven't. No, I've heard of it, but I can't say I've read it.
Well, I run a workshop on this, but from what you were just talking about there, I'd strongly recommend you read the book because you'll literally be highlighting every other page.
Right.
That's good. They go about General Motors in there as well. I'm pretty sure they do actually, but yeah, that talks a bit about what you talk about there, and it's a nice what they've created from it is a nice theory, a nice methodology to embrace those imperfections and how to collaborate correctly. So,
great.
All right, okay. So let's. Who would be the right sort of people to contact you to make if they're listening to this, they like your story, they want to know more? Who should be making contact with you?
Look, for me, anyone that wants to learn about people is one, and that's a very broad topic. Look, a lot of my audience has actually been HR leaders. I've got a lot of CEOs that will reach out to me on a regular basis. But it is, I think if you're going through a transformation or a change, or even you just want to improve your culture and you're going, but I don't know where to start because my leadership doesn't get it, or I don't know where to start because I've got, people that are very aggressive. I'm always willing to share my experiences and some of the tools and tips that we did. So, yeah, so most of the people that reach out to me are in the HR space or the senior leadership space, but
Yeah.
I'm an open book. I do try and help people as much as I can, and if you find me on LinkedIn, I'm generally pretty open.
That's my next thing. Where to find you? And I was going to say, surely LinkedIn would be the spot to pop in a note and a hello. And
yeah. Absolutely. And there's not many Jamie Getgoods in the world. So it's a very unique last name.
Yeah, what's the origin of the name? Go on, let's
it's from Scotland.
Okay.
And I believe it has an Irish backing as well. So the way I think about it is my ancestors must have been really bad because at some point they kept getting told to get good. And interesting, the unions at Holden or General Motors would say, Jamie, get good, get bad, get lost, get stuffed, get. So there's lots of variants I've heard in my life, but I do try and live by my own mantra, which is, when it comes to people, let's get good.
Yeah, well, I have to be careful with my surname on that one then.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it.
Okay, listen, it's been lovely chatting with you. I look forward to our next conversation, and hopefully people do reach out and that your story resonates with.
Not a problem.
Thank
you, Tom.
Thank you for watching this episode. I hope that you did enjoy it, had lots of takeaways from it. As before, please subscribe below so you can keep on top of any new releases we have. And also, if you would like to have your story told, just reach out with me and I'd love to give you that platform. My best email address is tom@purplepatchconsulting.com. Thank you.